Welcome to
Introverts Own Your Voice. I'm Tom Marcoux.
And I'm Johanna.
This episode is about personal energy paradox. Your way to success, better than time management. Johanna, I have a question for you. When was the time you felt courageous?
I think the first time I really felt really courageous was my first workshop that I did.
Why did you need courage for that?
Oh, I was scared to pieces about messing up, saying the wrong thing.
Exactly. But somehow you had the energy to do a good amount of rehearsals, right?
Rehearsal was mandatory.
So here's an important thing, and this is why I call it the personal energy paradox. In order to have a good life, in order to be a good person, we need to have enough energy in order to get things done and get them done consistently. And so many times when I've talked with audience members or clients and they say, oh, I need a better way of doing time management. What they're really talking about is I need a way to overcome procrastination. I need a way to push myself to do what's courageous. And I'm suggesting that standard time management doesn't fulfill what we need. Just writing a to-do list, often for many of us, is a guilt list.
I can relate to that, Tom. When I don't do something on my list, I feel really guilty.
And how's your energy when you're feeling guilty?
Oh, my energy gets sucked away.
And this is my point. Here's what the paradox is. So we use goals, we use our aiming to be courageous and get things done and stretch ourselves and all that stuff. We use that to push ourselves. Unfortunately, many of us grew up in households where punishment, saying you're wrong and you're not good enough, that was going on. And so sometimes we might hesitate to even write down a goal because we don't want to make ourselves vulnerable to being punished when we don't succeed in completing the task and getting it marked off the list. There's another part to this personal energy paradox that I want to talk about. Johanna, when's the last time you felt like you expressed compassion?
I have a particular friend that I listen to a lot, and she has a lot of issues. And I try to extend that compassion and listen and just make space for her.
That sounds great. Have you ever felt that you might not have enough energy to be really present for her?
I find that sometimes I'm not sure if I'll really have enough energy in order to be there for that person.
I'm with you. And so here's what the personal energy paradox difficulty is. For many of us who are trying to be good people, be supportive, be loving, be kind, we have both of these things going on. We have what are called aspired values. That means we aspire to be present, be kind, be compassionate, be courageous. We aspire to those values. And then we have something else called practice values, which is, this is what we actually do in real life. We may think of ourselves as really kind people, but if you were in the subway system, either in San Francisco or New York City, something like that, and you see someone who looks a bit off, and then you see somebody else go and help them, you go, oh, thank goodness. Because you didn't have any extra energy. You didn't have a buffer. And many of us don't have a buffer of time either. I'll give you an example. If you have a buffer of energy and a buffer of time, then you could do the kind thing. A friend of mine got hurt, has a difficulty with the leg, is using crutches, needed to get up this flight of stairs. One young man saw this and said, would you like some help?
That's very nice of you.
I know, it gives you, the old phrase is, restores your faith in humanity, right? And the thing is though, this young man had a buffer of energy and apparently a buffer of time too. They weren't rushing to whatever, to work, or they weren't rushing to take a college exam, or who knows. This is what we have to look at with the personal energy paradox. We need to make sure you have a buffer of energy. And the real paradox part is that if we push ourselves too hard to always have to be courageous and to always have to be compassionate, we may not have that buffer of energy to accomplish it. And every time we fall short, because there were other people who walked past, didn't say, oh, do you need help getting up those stairs? There are other people who walked past, they didn't have that buffer of energy. But maybe if they thought about it, they had shame or felt guilt for not stopping and helping. The main point I have here is that we need to pay attention to how we are living in our daily lives. We need to create that buffer of energy. We need to also realize that when we discover that we don't have the energy, we have to practice two things. One, self-compassion. Compassion is a powerful word, particularly this definition. You see suffering with a desire to relieve it. We have to look at ourselves and say, I see suffering in myself. Now, I've gone through a time where I had chronic pain from a shoulder injury. And I discovered that chronic pain takes away your energy.
Yes.
There goes the buffer of energy. When in that situation, I would have to have the energy to do physical therapy exercises. I would have to have the presence of mind to reduce a schedule so that I have the energy to heal. I would like to at least summarize where we've come so far with the following. Personal energy paradox. To be doing something better than standard time management, just writing a list, you have to pay attention and generate some self-compassion. You have to see where you're suffering. You have to want to relieve that suffering. You have to devote energy and reserve space to take care of your own suffering so that you can reach towards the aspired values of being courageous and the aspired value of being compassionate towards other people. I'm not saying this is easy, but I am saying that we might be able to simplify by just checking things out. How am I doing? The word is halt. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Have some self-compassion. Relieve the hunger or the anger or the loneliness or the tiredness. It could be as simple as making space to call a dear friend so that you can have a break for 5 or 10 minutes just to hear their voice and realize somebody cares about you. This is part of self-care. Now it looks like a good time for a Marcoux moment. This is when we look at one of the 47 books we have up on Amazon, and I share an excerpt from a book. The book is Create Your Best Life. Unleash your charisma and confidence to change the world. Now, I'm going to start on page 3. The first time I wrote the title of this book and attached a subtitle of Change the World, I felt a rush of joy and excitement. I called a close friend and immediately, like a terrible reflex, he said, change your world. He diminished the idea. I know he was trying to be helpful. Perhaps he thought that change the world might reduce sales. Some cynical people might scoff at the magnitude of change the world. Fine, I'm not writing for them. I am writing for you. Something positive waits to be created by you, to be expressed by you. Now I'll coach you through this book so that you'll learn how to create your best life and change the world. Now over here on page 102, I want to share this section. Get over denial. Denial can kill your dream. How? What you do not know and you do not fix can drop your dream cold. For example, this year will be a breakthrough year for my team. How do I know? I will do things that I've never done before. The idea is to get over the denial that I already have all the people and elements I need at this moment. So that's the close of this excerpt from the book, Create Your Best Life. Unleash your charisma and confidence to change the world. Johanna, I'm curious. What are you going to keep from our conversation?
I think the most important part is just reminding me about that I need to do self-care.
Excellent. Self-care and paying attention are the essence of how we take care of our aspired values, courage, and compassion. Let's remember that compassion is seeing suffering with a desire to relieve it. Self-care helps us to relieve our suffering inside ourselves, and then we have the energy. And that's how we overcome the personal energy paradox. That having the goals of courage and compassion, when we don't live up to them, can help us beat ourselves up emotionally, which loses energy. So what we do is instead we acknowledge that we do need self-care, and we do sometimes slip or backslide. But what we do is we pay attention and we do some more self-care, and then we have our energy recovered and we can go out into the world and really express ourselves with courage and compassion. Thank you, Johanna.
Thank you, Tom.
For articles and videos, go to getthebigyes.com. Also, visit yourbodysoulandprosperity.com. We're glad that you heard this broadcast, and we invite you to
Click to subscribe.
and then you'll be supporting me and Johanna and our message.
And so now remember,
Introverts can show their best self with strategy.
I'm Johanna McLeod.
I'm Tom Marcoux.
Thank you.
Be well.
Bye.